been addressed as follows. On the policy and legislative review, with as the department submitted the legislative review schedule to address the National Treasury's conditions as required. The second one being the appointment of the Chief Reorganization Officer, and the department, we have received the draft terms of reference from the National Treasury, and we are providing required input. Upon finalization and agreement with the Minister of Finance, the appointment process for the CRO will be expedited. Lastly, as they requested that we appoint a new board, it has been appointed. Hence, you see the chairperson seated on my right. Colleagues, it is noted that the SABC turnaround requires more than 3.2 billion short-term funding. However, the public broadcaster was required to submit a fit-for-purpose turnaround plan which would respond to short, medium and long-term requirements and the changing broadcasting landscape. SABC has since submitted a board-approved turnaround plan which is currently being reviewed by both departments. The Department of Communications will further continue engaging with National Treasury to source funding through the normal medium-term expenditure framework processes. Going forward, and to ensure compliance with the funding conditions, SABC is expected to present its monthly financial status to the Department of Communications. The SABC plays an integral role to inform, educate, and entertain the public. As a department, we remain committed to ensuring a public broadcaster that is able to effectively discharge its mandate whilst being a commercially viable organization. In conclusion, I appreciate the support that has been provided by the Minister of Finance and his team, and of course, as well as the Deputy Minister, Pingi Kekane, for the collective leadership. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the Minister. Now we are going to allow questions. We request that the questions be precise and concise. Each journalist will be allowed a maximum of 2 questions to ask. Please do not have stories. The one, we're going to start with Pretoria, and then we're going to move to Cape Town. So the rounds will be 2. So who is going to ask the first question? By show of hands. Please state where you are from, the media house you are representing, and your name. Minister, there are no questions. What?
Cape Town?
Cape Town? There is a hand in Cape Town. 2.
Hi, Minister. My name is Babalo from EWM. I'm just checking if you identified any of these non-core assets. That's the only question. Thank you. And if you have, what are these non-core assets that are under consideration?
Good morning, Minister. My name is Andy Siwe Makinana for the Sunday Times. Peter, we do not have a copy of the statement, so maybe we'll not be able to capture correctly the requirements. But the one that the SABC did not meet at all. Can you explain to us what is it about? I just picked up that it's developing a comprehensive private sector plan, but I'm not sure if that is correct and what exactly is it that they are required to do. And secondly, the turnaround plan of the SABC, I think they said it requires 6.8 billion for them to implement that turnaround. So is this 3.2 part of a 6.8 that they may get at some point, or will this be the only funding they will be getting from the state as per their request? And also, Minister, the board chairperson, the last time I appeared before the portfolio committee, he said they met all but one requirement. So that they have partially met 2 and didn't met 1 is sort of contradicting what he told the portfolio committee. So I don't know if maybe the chairperson can also talk to the requirements and whether he agrees with the minister.
It's open now. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. So probably let me start with you before I go to Babalo. Just on the last question that you're asking in terms of the meeting or the full compliance with the conditions and the report by the chairperson in the portfolio committee. And of course, as I said earlier in my statement, SABC submitted their own report in terms of their response to the preconditions that has been set up by the Treasury. And having received those, the two departments, which is National Treasury and Department of Communications, had to do the assessment if whether they are fully met or not, which is why I came back with this, that they have not met one, which talks to the private sector partnerships in terms of the detail of how they're going to derive value out of the partnerships, but the strategy that must talk to that. We were not satisfied that it goes to detail, so that's one thing that they've not met. As I said, majority have been met. Others partially met, as I said. I mentioned the ones that were partially met in terms of the production of the separate financial reporting for public and commercial broadcasting services, which means SABC had to present in the plan a commercial funding plan and the public service plan. So that as government, as we seek to provide funding to SABC for public mandate, we do not then short-circuit them by saying, this is what you are expected to do, add more responsibilities, whilst we're not giving them enough funding. At the same time, in order to avoid where we fund for public and the money is taken from public for commercial purposes. So we needed clarity on that. And as I said, we said they must go deeper and then provide us with those answers. The identification of the non-core assets, I have not identified and I am not going to identify. It is the responsibility of SABC to identify non-core assets. They are the ones that will tell us, based on the evaluation in terms of the contribution that those entities make under SABC, to say we are making sense on the Stella one, but on the Nomvuiso one we don't make some profit, and therefore we think we can do away with this one because it does not serve what we want to achieve in the future, because we're not only talking to SABC of today, but the remodeling and repurposing of SABC to be the SABC of the future. Therefore, to say, as we march towards the future, this is what we want SABC to be like, and these are the vehicles that we need. It doesn't mean when they do away with certain assets, it doesn't mean that they can't acquire new, for as long as they're going to meet the mandate for the future. So that's what's happening with the non-core assets. Babalo asked on the...
it was non-core, Minister.
Okay, that was Babalo.
And then, yeah, it was the non-core.
I think I've responded to both of you, and Siwe and Babalo. I hope you are satisfied. We will, of course, circulate the statement. If it has not yet been circulated, on Twitter we will tag you.
Yes, may respond. Introduce yourself.
From ENCA. Minister, when the chairperson appeared before Parliament, he said that the 2-point-something they would be using it to pay their creditors. So it's clear that it's not enough money, and they said that part of their turnaround strategy was, of course, the shedding of jobs that they haven't been allowed to do. But in terms of the support there, what is it that is expected of them if their turnaround strategy is not supported? Because part of it is the fact that the salaries constitute more than 40% of their liabilities. But what is it they're expected to do if they cannot cut down on their liabilities?
I didn't get his name, but I know he's from ENCA. Lindo Kuhle, I am not sure which turnaround strategy that you're talking about of the SABC that is not supported. Probably if I were to get clarity on that. And you make a good point on the issue of sharing of jobs, what's going to happen. But you first talk of a turnaround strategy that's not supported. If you can elaborate on that so that when I respond to you, I know that's what you're looking for.
Yes, Minister, thank you so much. When they had proposed to, share jobs, I should say that, in front of the state capture inquiry, as well as in Parliament, in front of the state capture inquiry, they said they were not allowed to share jobs, they were not allowed to retrench. And that's part of their turnaround strategy that was not supported. So what I'm asking is, if they are not allowed to do what they think is best, including cutting their liabilities, how are they expected then to turn around their state?
Probably, let me help you. I will not respond to what was said in the State Commission. responses to the State Commissioner provided in that platform. But in relation to the turnaround strategy and the cutting of the human capital that seems to be adding more costs to the SABC, as you said, it's part of the turnaround plan. In my presentation earlier, I made mention of the fact that we're still working on finalization for the bigger amount that Andisiwe was asking about, that SABC in its turnaround strategy, they had requested a sum of 6.8 billion, of which government for now has provided 3.2 billion. And Andisiwe, as I said earlier, we will be, upon finalizing all this turnaround plan, we are engaging with the Treasury to see, as I said, following the normal processes of requesting funding. This was an immediate intervention that was given. And including the issue that talks to jobs, right now that's part of the plan, and I know in the plan there's the issue that talks to skills audit, and once the SABC is done with that, I guess that's the right time. For now, I feel like it's immature to respond to such, because as I said earlier, as part of the turnaround plan that they've submitted, there's a component that talks to skills audit. That's what gives you the understanding of the capabilities of the organization, and therefore to say these skills I require and these ones I don't. Of course, as I said, not looking into the SABC of today, but what you want to make out of SABC for the future.
Thank you, Minister. There's a question.
Minister, is there perhaps a time frame set for the SABC to meet the outstanding requirements? Have you set the time frame for them to meet the requirements?
Well, the teams have not set up a time frame. They are engaging, even if it's next week after their meetings. Unfortunately, that's the process that's done by the two technical teams. So even if it's next week when they come and then we submit the reports to the Treasury after the assessment, then if then we're both satisfied, then we release the rest. It's in our interest as the department and SABC to make sure that we immediately address those shortfalls so that the money can be immediately released.
We have two questions, Minister, from Cape Town. I'll allow Cape Town for two questions. Thank you.
Louise Omarji from Fin24. I might have missed it, but in terms of the public-private sector partnership, can we maybe get an idea of what the SABC is considering?
Thank you. That's FinTech. That's now exposing SABC strategy, and I don't think I want to do that because there are competitors in the house. So please bear with us. Let SABC do their internal strategies that they will work, and then they will announce what belongs to the public. Until then, I cannot make any comment on that.
Second question from Cape Town.
Just following up on my earlier question to the Minister, who said that she can't really talk on the non-core assets. Can I then pose that question to the chairperson of the SABC?
Thank you, Babalo. The briefing is called by the Minister of Communications, and upon the chairperson of the board having met with the board and everybody else, they will convene their own press briefing where they'll be able to provide responses to the questions that are related to SABC.
I see Minister Lindukuhle wants to, we still have time, wants to have another bite, with your permission.
Thank you. This is the last one. When is the government appointing a chief restructuring officer of the SABC? Thank you.
I guess Linda Kuhle wasn't listening properly when I read the statement, because I said we are busy engaging on the draft terms of reference that have been sent to us by the National Treasury. We are making inputs as the department, and we'll send them back. Once that process is finalized, then together with the Minister of Finance, we'll then appoint the CRO.
All right. Are there any questions from Cape Town? If there's none, Minister.
Yes, we've got one.
You've got one.
Minister, again. We appreciate that this is your press conference called by you and not by the SABC board chairperson. But some of the things that you say contradict things that he has said. So hence we need clarity, and he's there. So that's what we'd like maybe to get clarity from him, because he is there. And he told the Portfolio Committee, for instance, that they met the requirement on non-core assets, and that they were expected now to identify core assets. So what you're saying now is contradictory to what he said, and hence we are asking for clarity from him. And Minister is there.
Thank you, Andisiwe. And yes, there's no contradiction to what I said and what the chair said. I did say SABC drafted the turnaround plan, approved it, and sent it to us. Therefore, according to their own plan and their own understanding of what they're supposed to do, they responded based on that. And then having gone through the document, we did the assessment together with National Treasury, and we felt like they were not fully met. That's the report that we are giving. There's no contradiction. It's just like saying, Minister says SABC has not submitted its turnaround plan, whilst SABC says we have a turnaround plan. Yes, they have a turnaround plan that they've developed, but then because we're looking for funding, and therefore we have to satisfy the requirements and the expectations by the sponsor to the fund, which is what we were doing. So there are no contradictions there. So what SABC has submitted, and according to their understanding, they had fully complied.
Thank you, Minister. Journalists that are in the House, I want to say thank you to you, because this is the end of the press briefing. The purpose of the press briefing, Minister, you've answered questions and actually had more rounds than we anticipated, and we appreciate everyone that has come here. There will be a press statement that will be circulated to everyone. As Minister has already mentioned, it will be also be tagged on Twitter to those of you that have Twitter accounts. I think that this session is closed.
Thank you.